It's time for our usual video about how to use a prompt to help you. This one has a couple of new features compared to the previous two. This first slide is very similar to the other slides you've seen on this topic. Make sure before you begin that you read the entire prompt section quite carefully. Understand everything that I'm saying before you move on to the breakdown that I'm going to present in the next few slides. As always, we want to break it down into its parts, and I wanted to talk about being specific. Being specific and taking a deep dive. I don't know, many of you mentioned in Carr's article that you liked his analogy of the scuba dive versus the jet ski. So when you're riding the jet ski, you're skimming along the surface of information. When you pause in one spot to scuba dive, you're diving deep into the information. Diving deep is what I'd really like you to try to do in all of our essays, but especially in this one, number 3, and the final one, number 4, for our class. This is the main reason that the prompt begins by asking you to pick a specific aspect of your device. And I want to be clear, this device can be any of your devices that you use to access the online world, whether it's a smartphone, an iPad, some other brand of those things. Anything like that you can focus in on. I would like an even narrower focus though, a specific type or, a specific app or type of activity. This is going to be the main object of investigation that your essay is going to discuss. I also want you to notice that this part of the prompt asks you to think about the benefits and drawbacks. Now that's not exactly the same thing as what was talked about in chapter 4 of They Say, I Say, but it is in a way a similar activity. You're agreeing basically that some features of, say, a phone, smartphone, are very useful. You can also agree that some aspects of a smartphone are really distracting and terrible. So in a way, you're doing both. And so if you look back into chapter 4, the templates there about both agreeing and disagreeing may help you think of some ways to phrase your initial ideas especially. Now you're probably surprised in a topic about technology to see a very old-fashioned object here. This, I was actually wondering when I selected it if everyone in class would know what it is, because not everybody has a sewing machine in their household, and even if you do, you might not have one of these vintage spools of thread. I'm putting it up here because when we're in class, I often draw this shape. The top, if you look at the green spool of thread, the top is very wide, and then the middle is narrower, and then the bottom is very wide again. And I like to use it as a metaphor to describe what I mean by a case study. And so as you're thinking about the specific feature of your smartphone or the specific app you want to discuss, that's your object that you're going to analyze for your deep dive. And your deep dive is really represented in this image by the section of the spool that is the green thread. So as a metaphor, your essay starts out in its introduction quite broadly. You may talk about smartphones in general, technology in general, but you quickly want to narrow it down to the specific thing your essay is going to discuss. And the bulk of your essay, hopefully most of the body paragraphs, the middle, will stay focused on that one aspect of technology that is the main topic of your essay. And then at the end of the essay, you're going to broaden it out again, concluding maybe some larger idea related to technology in general, whether that, yes, it has benefits, but we need to be careful, or no, its drawbacks are too great, we need some regulation. Could be a variety of other opinions you state as well. But I just wanted you to have this figure in mind, because when I say a case study, this is something other professors in your future are going to mention to you. A case study means picking a very narrow example. Another way of thinking about it is to think of it as an extended example to illustrate a larger point. So you're going to say something, a big idea about, say, technology, or maybe just about smartphones, or maybe just about the internet. But you can't talk about every single aspect of that in such a short paper. Even in a long paper, say 15, 20 pages, you still can't talk about everything. That would take a book. Do you know what I mean? A whole book to do a really thorough job of discussing that topic. So this is why you need to pick just one case study to illustrate your big point about the technology in general. I hope that makes sense. When you get into the specifics of the actual writing prompt, I split it into the two parts. How has smartphone technology changed people, which could be your big point, and including you, because you are part of the people who have been changed by technology. You yourself could be this case study I was talking about, but you don't have to limit yourself to that. You can also talk about people around you, society in general, but the two parts, the reason I like to separate it, is that both parts are actually required by this prompt. You do need to include at least a little bit of examples coming out of your own life. You can also include some examples from other people, some examples that you've drawn from your research, either the articles we read together as a class, or some other articles you found on your own, or even articles you found at the They Say I Say blog under this broad topic. So really both parts are required. The final slide of this prompt analysis just reminds you to look at the little paragraph that comes after the writing prompt, right? My previous slide is really about the first green box there. Use a combination of personal experience and material you've researched as evidence to support your position, right? I noticed in Essay 2, a lot of people had a lot of interesting information that they had found, but it was just sort of hanging out in the essay. And the reason it just seemed like it was placed in the essay is because it wasn't really clear all the time how the information helped you prove your point. So one thing you can do as you're working on the essay is think about, well, why am I using this source right here? Why am I using this personal experience right here? What main point in this paragraph, or what idea in the entire paper is it helping me to explain or prove? That's why it should be in your essay, not just because it's interesting. I think the danger with doing research is that sometimes we get very excited about information we found out and we just want to share it with other people. But the point of writing an essay is to support an argument. And so if it doesn't support your argument, you shouldn't use it, even though it may be true that it's completely fascinating. All right. The other 2 points are really breaking down what kind of sources I'm looking for you to use in this assignment. We really want them to be high quality. You've now completed all of the library modules, so you should have a good understanding of how to find peer-reviewed, high quality, scholarly, or academic sources. And just a detail that I'd like you to use, the last box there that's kind of an orange-yellow color, is to make sure you use at least one of the assigned readings. That can be any of the 5 from the blog, They Say I Say blog, or it could be the car article, Is Google Making Us Stupid? Those will count as one of the assigned readings, and also you need to use at least one additional source that you found in the LBCC databases. You'll get a lot of help on that last bit from an assignment that's coming up this week about scholarly sources, and each person in class will share one to the discussion. And it's okay if you guys read through each other's sources and you want to use something from a source that somebody else found. That's totally acceptable. That's one of the points of doing that exercise together. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll be dropping in to tell you a few other things during the week.